Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to another episode of Tales from 2 a.m. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis from BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. I am a contributor to the website as well as the podcast producer, and I meet with you every single week around this time. Actually, this is a lot later this morning. We usually go at 9 a.m. Eastern, but because of the Easter holiday, decided to go a little bit later to spend some time with my family, and now it's time to spend some time with my BTSC family. So happy Easter to everybody that celebrates that, and I am glad to have you on with me. It is nice to see you hanging out. So what is going on, Steeler Nation? You know, it was a really eventful week last week with everything that went on, especially with the Tyson Alualu signing. Now, this week, there wasn't as much action. Still, things happened. Pittsburgh Steelers sent some coaches to pro days, which is a very big deal, especially with some of those first-round picks and second-round picks up in the air. I know that they went ahead and went to the North Carolina pro day, which features two running backs and the possibility of an inside linebacker maybe in the third round in Chaz Surratt. Those running backs are Michael Carter and, of course, Javonte Williams. So there are some, great prospects there. Another guy that has been bandied about, inside linebacker Zaven Collins, had his pro day on Friday, and Zaven Collins showed up pretty well from what I understand. The Pittsburgh did not have Mike Tomlin there, did not have Kevin Colbert, but they did have some coaches there, did have some sort of contingent. And that's one thing I wanted to bring up. A lot of people are worried about the fact that if Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert do not show up to a pro day, that they're not serious about that prospect. That could not be further from the truth. And here's the reason why. When you think about one of the greatest picks in Pittsburgh Steelers history, you think about Rod Woodson. And I remember a story of Tony Dungy, who was the defensive backs coach at the time. I don't believe he was quite defensive coordinator yet. He may have been. But he went to Chuck Noll and said, look, we're picking at number 10. There is no way that Woodson's going to fall to us. So we do not need to spend too much time going to see him at Purdue for workouts. We know all about him, but we're not going to get him. So he's a pipe dream at this point. Well, teams like the Cleveland Browns, every time the Steelers make a great pick, the Cleveland Browns kind of screw their own pick up and could have taken that guy from them, and they make some peculiar move. Well, this time around, they took a guy, I believe it was Trey Junkin. Was it Junkin that they took early, somewhere in the, before the Steelers drafted? There was some very strange picks. Then Buffalo went right before them, I believe, and picked up Shane Conlon, who could have been on the board for the Steelers if he was around. Shane Conlon had a great career in the NFL, but not really like Woodson did. But when they got to number 10, there's Woodson, and it's a no-brainer. They didn't spend a lot of time scouting him. They didn't send a huge contingent to go see him, but they knew all about him, knew his reputation. So don't really worry if a player falls to the Steelers and they didn't have the proper contingent to go see that player, that they're going to pass up on him because they don't know anything about him. Trust me, the Steelers and the other NFL teams know everything about these players, especially in this day and age. So it's nothing to worry about. Once again, this is going to be a very interesting draft. I think the Steelers have a lot of avenues that they can go in the first round. For the first time, I'm really not sure. So I'm not sure at all. So that's something really exciting for me. Wow, it's great to see everybody in here. Lisa Marie says, I thought you lived in Pittsburgh. Found out you are in Baltimore. Actually, I'm from Johnstown, Pennsylvania. I went to Pitt Johnstown. I spent a lot of time in Pittsburgh. I've lived in West Virginia as well, but I live in Maryland. I probably live about an hour outside of Baltimore. So that's, I'm not exactly in Baltimore, but I'm surrounded by a lot of Ravens fans. But however, I think even in the state of Maryland, especially where I live, there's a lot of Steeler fans. So that's actually great. We've got Jeff from Altoona. That's awesome too. A lot of my good friends in here. It's so nice because we have so many people from Steeler Nation everywhere, whether it's in Pittsburgh, whether it's in the state of Maryland where I'm at. Then I've got people in Hawaii. And as you know from our Touchdown Under broadcast, we have Steeler fans in Australia that ended up doing their own show. And they're doing a fantastic job. If you've never checked out Steelers Touchdown Under, it's fantastic. They did another great show yesterday. Maddie and Mark, they were fans of the show in the live chat, just like you guys. So check them out. But Steeler Nation is everywhere, and that's an awesome thing. John's from Ontario, Canada. That's great. And I got to tell you, you guys are hanging out with me on Easter Sunday, and I appreciate that. This show's a little bit later than it usually is. And the reason it's a little bit later is I wanted to attend Easter Mass online, and I got a chance to do that. And I spent some time with my kids and their Easter baskets. So we're going to have our dinner a little bit later. Just the immediate family here. We are still. I'm still being very careful. I did have my vaccine the other day. My first. Well, actually, it's my only vaccine since I did the Johnson & Johnson, the one shot. And I got to tell you, it's boy, that knocked me down. But it's a good thing knowing that I'm going to have that. So I'm kind of laying low this holiday. But it's really nice to see all of you. And you know what? I'm going to just take some time to look at the live chat here. And since we're getting some roll calls in here, and this is really important to me. We mentioned the Johns from Ontario, Canada. My buddy, Cherry Band, Brooklyn, New York, baby. Yes. You know what? I was never a New York guy. I'm an LA guy. But then I spent some time in New York in the last couple of years, and I could wrap my head around New York. I love it. It's a great place. I'm still a West Coast guy, even though I've never lived there. But New York is so awesome. I believe each and every one of us should spend at least a year in New York and a year in California. I haven't done it, but that's something I would love to do. Byron, Tyler, Texas. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, and you know that I'm a professional wrestling guy. I love my pro wrestling too. I'm that guy. And if I'm not mistaken, from Tyler, Texas is Mark Henry, WWE Hall of Famer. Now, what a lot of you don't realize is Mark Henry, I don't know if he was a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I know he attended Pittsburgh Steelers games because back in the mid to late 90s, the Steelers had a defensive tackle, number 76. It was not Kevin. It was Kevin. It was spelled Kevin, Kevin. But Kevin Henry was, I'm not sure if he's from Tyler, Texas too, but I know Mark Henry was. So that's really interesting. Boing Boom. And he's from Mexico. That's awesome. Coming in from Mexico. This is probably one of my favorite things to see here. G-Bread Studios says it doesn't matter where you are or where you are from as long as you're a Steelers fan. That's really awesome. Kaysen coming in from Greenville. I believe if you're from there, it's going to be Greenville. That's Lynn Fenwick, north of England in the UK. Now, Lynn, I've got to tell you this. My wife's family is from England. Her mom was born in London, grew up in Surrey, if I'm not mistaken. And we have some relatives there, and we have some friends that are basically relatives. They are actually, I was with them the day that Dan Rooney passed away, and I was with them at a Rick Astley concert of all things when that happened, and they were trying to keep the news from me because they knew that I wouldn't take it too well. And I found out in the middle of the concert. But anyways, they are practically family. In fact, Mark was on the show, not on the show. He was in the live chat maybe a week or two ago. And friends that are, like I said, friends that are family, and they turned me on to West Ham. So I don't know much about soccer or football, as they call it in England. I guess it's the original football. But so I'm a West Ham fan because of that. And everybody says, you're a West Ham fan, and they make fun of me. And I'm like, well, I am because of that. I wear the West Ham stuff. They wear the Steelers stuff that I send them. I wear the stuff that they send me. That's awesome. Snowman is from Stanton, Delaware. Not too far from where I'm at, Snowman. Really. Not too far at all. Then we've got, this is good too, Micah, south side of Pittsburgh. Love it. You know what? You would be stunned. We probably have more fans from outside of Pittsburgh than we do in Pittsburgh. And probably one of the reasons why is because a lot of our fans have an opportunity to have local Pittsburgh radio and information. But now we're getting a lot from Pittsburgh too, so that's great. People from outside are able to check us out because we could be their lifeline to the Steelers. So that's awesome. Daredevil, my man, Daredevil, San Pedro, California. Melissa's coming from Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne. Okay, no, that's. I was thinking of Gary, Indiana, where the Jacksons were from. Fort Wayne was Antoine Randall from Fort Wayne? I'm not sure. That's something I've got to know. Debbie Dickerson, hello from Virginia Beach. Hi, Debbie. Boo Bash is coming in from Florida. My man Cree. Avenel, am I pronouncing that right? Avenel, New Jersey. Look, it's Easter Sunday. This is fun. Rod L says feels like later than usual. Yeah, it is. Because of Easter Sunday and Easter baskets and watching Easter Mass online. Wow, Portna has been a fan of us for a long time. I never knew that Portna was coming from Riga, Latvia. That is amazing. Hey, Portna. So this is great. Yeah, Portna says Rickrolled. Phenomenal concert. I got to tell you, phenomenal concert. When I saw, Rick Astley, you don't get Rickrolled in England. You seek out Rick Astley in England. That's an amazing thing. Lynn, you could probably back me up on that. When his album came out in 2016, 2017, it was #1 first week in England. He is that big of a deal. So that's really funny. Eric Askew says Tyler Eifert is from Fort Wayne, and I know he played for Notre Dame. He's a free agent. That's a guy that's interesting. I did not know. I was just talking about Rod Woodson, Robert Rohde. Is it Rohde or Road? I'm not sure. Rod Woodson's from Fort Wayne. I did not know that. George Teston, Locust Valley, PA. My. Okay, so hey, Brad. Hey, Bad State College, PA. And if I'm not mistaken, please tell me if I'm right, Bri. Is it your birthday today? For some reason, I have it in my head that it's your birthday today. Coming from State College, PA. One of my best buddies, Doug, is from State College, PA. Goes to all the games. I like to visit him every once in a while. I haven't been there in a while. I didn't realize. I swear, Bri 160701 and I are related because we have that flair for the 80s, and he's the only guy like me that will tell you all about Preston Gothard. So happy birthday to Bri. I'm friends with Bryan on Facebook. And hey, if you ever want to look me up on Facebook, feel free to. I'll be buddies with you. I got hacked again this week for some reason. So I don't know why I keep getting hacked. But anyways, Silsbee, Texas. Well, once again, let me go back to Bri. Happy birthday to Bryan. Hope it's a great day. So there you go. You're spending your birthday with this guy here? Why? I love it. Okay, so Tyler is the home of Earl Campbell. Mark Henry is from Silsbee, Texas. Byron, thank you. And I didn't know Patrick Mahomes was from there also. Yes, didn't they call Earl Campbell the Tyler Rose? Is that right? That's awesome. I knew Tyler was big for something. And gosh, you know what? Because I always think of I'm a Pirates fan too. That just comes with the territory. And I always remember, and I'm not sure where in Texas, I should know this, but Stone Cold Steve Austin and Doug Drabeck were from the same town in Texas. So that's really interesting. Rod Young, Montreal is the home of Celine Dion and Mario Lemieux. Rod, are you from Montreal too? I have never been to Montreal, but I understand. He is. There he is. Want to be my buddy, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, in the house. I hear Montreal is beautiful. I've been to Canada, but mostly Toronto and Niagara Falls and that area. I went to a Blue Jays game not too long ago. Just maybe about a year and a half ago. That was actually phenomenal. That was a lot of fun. And it was funny because the Orioles, I live in Baltimore. I'm not an Orioles fan, but I decided I have no problem repping the Orioles. They're not the same birds as the Ravens. I don't have a problem with the Orioles, so I can actually get behind them. So I remember going there and being there for an Orioles game, and it kind of felt like home because there's a lot of Orioles fans around here. But I do remember all Orioles fans, even though I'll root for your team, they're just as bad as mine, and the Pirates beat them in 71 and 79. So I got a little off track, but this is fun because this is what Tales from 2 a.m. is all about. And Tales from 2 a.m. is about looking back and your fandom and how you become a Steeler fan and Steeler stories and things like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about anything that's going on with the Steelers. We'll talk about today. I have no problem talking about today. We had a question earlier about the center position, and I did pass it up, but I don't want to let that go, and I'm not sure, and I think I've lost it now. But if you had a question about the center position, I think Creed Humphrey is probably a guy that the Steelers could look at. He's getting a lot of run now. He's a guy that the Steelers might look at in the first round if they really want a center. So that's a possibility. But there's so many places that they could go in the first round. I would love to see them get a center like Creed Humphrey. There's still a part of me that feels that you can get him in the second round. I feel you can get a guy like Javonte Williams in the second round, but you only have one second rounder. So you've got to decide and prioritize. Remember, wherever they decide to go, I think they are one of the best drafting teams in the National Football League. Do they always hit? No, they don't. Artie Burns, by the way, Artie Burns got a new contract with Chicago. I'm very glad for him. Great. It just didn't work out here in Pittsburgh. Jarvis Jones didn't work out here in Pittsburgh. But they did some great things to get drafted in the first round. So that is not to diminish any of their accomplishments. They just didn't work out here. But I'm really glad. I hope Artie Burns has a career resurgence. Really hope he does. But Pittsburgh drafts better than almost anybody in the NFL. And I will say that. In fact, Dave Schofield looked back last year when I challenged him on this, and I forgot that I challenged him on this. But he looked back at Pittsburgh versus New England in the last 15, 20 years drafting success. Pittsburgh actually has better drafting success than the New England Patriots. And that's something hard to believe. Snowman wants to visit Canada before he kicks the bucket. I'm in Jay Singh from Kuwait, where I saw my first Terrible Towel in 2005, then went to college in Pittsburgh, saw Super Bowl 43 there. Awesome. Ayman. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, I do apologize, but thank you for being a part of BTSC Nation. We love it. So that's it. We are a whole bunch of different people from a whole bunch of different places. But like somebody said, all that matters is that you're a Steeler fan. Cree asks, Bad, what are your thoughts if Humphrey and Harris are both there at 24? If I asked this before, sorry. Don't apologize, Cree. How many times do I repeat myself? Somebody somebody said, man, he could tell my stories better than I can now, which is true. This is really interesting because I'm still on the Zaven Collins bandwagon, an inside linebacker, courtesy of Dave Schofield, because I was talking to him about that. I was the first one on the Javonte Williams bandwagon. I actually think Javonte Williams might be the best all-around back, the best day one starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers. However, I just don't know how they're going to put the puzzle together. I think there's a bunch of positions they can go ahead and pick. You don't have to go for position this year. You can go for the best available. I don't know if Harris is really on the radar as much as we think. I think he might be third on their depth chart, but I don't know, not depth chart, on their big wall, on their big board. So I'm not sure. I actually think, man, if you could sneak a guy like Humphrey in the second round, that's amazing. You might not be able to because he had a great pro day. So, but right now, if I'm looking at this, if I had to pick between the two of them, I'm probably going to go for Humphrey because I think he can be. I think there is more of an opportunity to get a running back in the second round than there is the first round, than for a center. So I would go ahead for Humphrey first because he's that good. Harris, I think he could be available to you at number 2. Actually, I really do. I think Javonte Williams you might be able to sneak him. I don't think Etienne will be, but there are some other guys too. It just depends how they mix it around. This is going to be so interesting to see. I can't wait. This is one draft that I'm more excited for than anything. Let's see. As I look for, ESPN reported we signed a quarterback, Sid, who throws 100 yards and he's a pit man, party ends or part. I'm not sure I haven't figured that out for it. And I'm not sure. Jeff Dunn says Zaven Collins is good. Rod Young asked, does Collins play inside linebacker or outside linebacker? Actually, he could play both, but he is an inside linebacker. And do you realize, I know you've got Devin Bush there. I know you've got Spillane there. But do you realize what kind of depth you're going to have and how amazing it would be to have two of the fastest guys on the field at inside linebacker? That kind of changes your defense for the better. So that's interesting here. Bryan asks, did I hear the Steelers didn't even go to Harris Pro Day? Harris didn't. The Steelers were at the first Alabama Pro Day. I think there were 2 Alabama Pro Days, and he wasn't at the first one. He didn't show up at the first one. He showed up, but he wasn't going to play. In fact, he had a plane delay. He had to drive about 10 hours to get there to support his teammates, which I think is amazing. But the Steelers did not attend his pro day. At least Tomlin and Colbert didn't. I believe there was the Ohio State pro day on the same day, if I'm not mistaken. And you've got to know this. You don't want to pass up an Ohio State pro day either with all of the prospects that are there. Look, they know all they need. They don't have to go see Najee Harris. They really don't. Some of these guys you don't have to see. I think you need to go see Zaven Collins because you don't know about him. You know, I think you need to go see the kid of Wisconsin Whitewater, Quinn Miners. I think you need to find out about these guys a little bit more. Najee Harris, you've scouted him for years. And if he's there, and just because, like I said earlier, because of the Woodson thing, just because he's there and you don't go to his pro day, doesn't mean you can't pick him up. So Jeff Dunn says Steelers like Big Ten guys. Yeah, they do. They like Maryland guys because Mike Tomlin has a son that goes to Maryland. He could scout them all he wants. He doesn't have to go to a Maryland pro day. He knows everything he needs to know about Maryland players. And that goes a long way too. Let's take a break. We're going to just take a short break here, about 5 seconds here. If you are on any of our platforms where you download your favorite podcasts, just switch on over to number 2. Everybody else take a quick break, and we will be back right after this to talk about what's in a name. I think you're going to like this. Welcome back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Actually, the Pittsburgh Steelers? What am I saying? Let me try that again. Welcome back to Tales from 2 a.m. with stories of the Pittsburgh Steelers. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. Alongside me is nobody. It's just my solo show. And you can check out Tony and I tomorrow night on the Steelers Hangover. Jeff, Dave, and I on the Steelers Preview. And there's so much stuff on the audio side as well. Also, check out shows that I'm not on. In fact, they're actually pretty good. They're better when I'm not on the show. So the title of the show today is called What's in a Name? And this is interesting to me because a lot of people don't know all about the Steelers' names. A lot of people do know. And, I talked about them earlier. I'm a Pirates fan. And the Steelers were actually the Pittsburgh Pirates from 1933 to 1939. And then in 1940, they became the Steelers. Now, they had a fan contest to change their name. And fans could go ahead, and a lot of teams do this. Fans could go ahead and suggest names. Now, let me tell you about some of the other names that the Steelers could have been that were submitted in this contest. Some of them are absolutely ridiculous. Some of them are, you'll just shake your head. Could you imagine being a fan of the Pittsburgh Wahoos? The Pittsburgh Condors. I like the Condors. I believe they were I believe their basketball team was the Condors, if I'm not mistaken. The Pittsburgh Pioneers. The Pittsburgh Triangles. Okay, I get it. That falls in line. The Pittsburgh Bridgers. Okay. Then there was the Pittsburgh Buckaroos, the Pittsburgh Yankees. I just don't see us as the Yankees. I don't think it really works. Now there were more still-centric names too. The Pittsburgh Millers, the Pittsburgh Vulcans. Pittsburgh, if you're a Star Trek fan, wouldn't the Vulcans be awesome? The Pittsburgh Tubers, the Smokers, the Pittsburgh Smokers. Wow. The Pittsburgh Puddlers was another name. The Pittsburgh Rollers and the Pittsburgh Ingots. All steel-centric. Eric Askew likes Wahoos. Wahoos for the win. That's interesting. So among them, a few people won season tickets and a prize worth a value of about $5, as well as a cash prize, which would be worth about $92 today, according to Wikipedia. Now, what you don't know, something you don't know, if you listen to my show about a week ago with the preview, if you listen to that show, you would understand and know this answer. And the answer is not the Steagles. Yes, they were named the Steagles in 1943 during the war, when the Eagles and the Steelers had to come together and play. They also were the Pit Cards the next year because of they did the same thing with the Chicago Cardinals at the time because of the war. But in 1941, not a lot of people realize this. And this might seem like blasphemy. This is something that's going to stab you in the heart for a second. Art Rooney sold the Steelers in 1940. Yes, he sold the Steelers. It ended up, finances were tough, so he decided to kind of merge with the Eagles, and like I said, not the Steagles. And he sold the team to a man named Thompson, who was from Boston. And he renamed the team. And if you listen to the Steelers preview about a week and a half ago, you know the name of this team. And this is a great name. The Steelers, for a couple of months, they never played, but they would have been the Pittsburgh Ironmen. Yeah, the Pittsburgh Ironmen. And can you imagine the team coming out? Bam, 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 I am Iron Man. Okay, that would have been really cool. They could still do that. That could be a nickname. I think I'm going to start calling them the Iron Men in articles. But what happened was Rooney realized that the commute to Philadelphia was a little tough. Same with Thompson. Alexis Thompson was his name, by the way. I'm just calling him Thompson. Alexis Thompson. He realized that, Boston and Philly are a lot closer. So they organized a deal to Rooney bought back the Steelers. And Thompson ended up going in and was going to have a team in Philadelphia. And I don't know exactly what happened with that, but they still ended up both being owners. But that's what happened. So for a little bit, Mr. Rooney sold the Steelers, and then he had a change of heart. Sounds like the change of heart that Tyson Alulu had last week. Not to the same extent, but sometimes you realize, hey, grass isn't greener on the other side. We see so many romantic comedies that somebody realizes that, this isn't what I thought it was. What I love is right in front of me all along. So there you go. So that is what's in a name. Now, I'm looking at some other teams here, and I thought it'd be fun and how teams got their names. And it's really intriguing to me. The Ravens tried to get the Colts name back. So I know we have a Ravens fan. Welcome to the show. I appreciate that. Rod Woodson did get his ring in Baltimore. I bet you he'd trade it to have one in Pittsburgh, but that was our fault, not his. The Ravens were almost the Americans and the Marauders, which Baltimore Marauders actually sounds pretty cool. But they went with the Edgar Allan Poe reference, and that's why they got their name. Why are the Cardinals called the Cardinals? It's because they had maroon jerseys, and Cardinals are a dark red. And so that's what they decided to do. That's why they call themselves the Cardinals. The Bills were named after a famous frontiersman. They were in Buffalo. They named themselves after Buffalo Bill Cody. That's how the Bills have been named. Buffalo Bill Cody. How about that? The Browns were almost the Panthers, but it was owned by a local businessman. You can't flush down the Panthers, but when it's brown, you can flush it down. The Cowboys wanted to be the Steers, and then the Rangers. They wanted to be the Texas Rangers, but then they decided that they did not want the confusion with the police group. But they just realized the reason they did not become the Steers, and this is hilarious. They did not want the name. They did not want their team to be associated with that of a castrated bovine. True story. The Texans were almost the Apollos, which I would have been all behind. Man, you could have Carl Weathers hanging out at games, Apollo Creed. They're red, white, and blue. Now, the reason that they became the Texans, they wanted to be the Texans, but Jerry Jones owned the name in the Arena Football League of the Texans. And when he decided to change the name to the Dallas Desperados, that's what they did. Snowman's chiming in with, isn't the Cardinal the Missouri State bird? I don't know, but they were not originally the St. Louis Cardinals. They were the Chicago Cardinals. So there, and Robert Rohde says, yeah, it's also the state bird of Illinois. I'm still reading that. I got the fact that they were maroon color. So maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? The Colts were named the Colts because they were the youngest team in the league, and the Colt is a young horse. The Jaguars were almost the Sharks, the Stingrays, and the reason they were the Jaguars, this is hilarious to me. It's because the Jacksonville Zoo had the oldest living jaguar at the time. Yeah, the zoo housed a jaguar, and that's why they named themselves the Jaguars. Because when you think of Jacksonville, you definitely don't think of a jaguar. Now, funny story. I went to Mexico for a wedding. I went to Cancun, and we were golfing. A horrible golfer, by the way. And the reason that I bring up the fact that I'm a horrible golfer is because I was shanking stuff like crazy. All these slices going into the woods, and they had little signs that said, "Be careful of going looking for your balls because there have been jaguar sightings." I'm like, jaguars? I'm golfing and I'm going to be eaten by a jaguar? No, thank you. I went back to the pool at that point. So, yeah, the Steelers, Pittsburgh, Jaguars in Florida, the only reason is because the zoo housed a jaguar. That's amazing. The oldest of the species. The Chiefs were almost the Mules, Royals, or Stars. Those were some of the nicknames. They ended up being the Chiefs because the mayor of Kansas City was H. Roe Bartle at the time, and his nickname was the Chief, just like our owner, the Chief. But the mayor was the Chief, and they decided to do it for them. You're not going to believe this one. The Chargers. Chargers started out in LA. They're in LA again. The team owner had an affiliation with a credit card company. And because I believe it was the Hiltons at the time, Hilton might have been the first owner, but he also had an affiliation with a credit card company, and he thought it'd be cool to call his team the Chargers. As I'm doing the swipe, the Chargers. Can you believe that? That's insane. But they also thought the bugle cry, the charge, would be cool for a team. That's why they are the Chargers. The Vikings were an aggressive person with the will to win. That's why they named them that team. Also, interesting about the Vikings, and we've seen this with other teams. They were the first team, the first professional sports team to do what? What is significant? And we're talking about the name. What's significant about that? I'm not going to give you time to answer. I'm just going to tell you. The Vikings were the first team to, instead of call themselves by the city, they called themselves by the state. So that's why they are the Minnesota Vikings. You know, the Miami Marlins used to be the Florida Marlins. Of course, the Panthers are the Florida Panthers. The Arizona Cardinals used to be the Phoenix Cardinals. Then they became Arizona. So there's some interesting stuff there too. Dave Shipley says, "Happy Easter." Thanks, Dave. Happy Easter. Dave knows a lot about Dave, you should know about Jacksonville. Is that true? The reason they named themselves that team? I think you're around that area, aren't you, Dave? Because of the oldest living jaguar at the time. In the speech. Okay, I'm not bringing that up on the screen, but check out Portna's comment. Oh, gosh. Really funny. The Saints, this is funny. The Saints were named after the religious holiday, All Saints Day, because it was announced that they got the team on All Saints Day. That's why the Saints. The Jets were close to an airport, and also other names were almost the Burrows or the Goths. And the reason the Goths was because of Gotham City. But they chose the Jets. I think the New York Jets. I still think that's a pretty cool name. Dave Shipley says, yeah, the county voted Panthers and they were taken. Yeah, Carolina came in at the same time. That's interesting. Two teams wanted to be the Panthers in Jacksonville and Carolina in 1995. The Raiders, this is my favorite. Could you imagine how intimidating the silver and black Oakland Raiders would be if they were the Oakland Seniors? I'm not kidding. They were almost the Seniors. Why are they not the Seniors? This is even funnier to me. It's because the sports writers, there was a sport writer that went to them and said, look, we don't have the accent mark on our typewriters to be able to call them the seniors. How ridiculous is that? This is true. This is absolutely true. The Eagles were, it was a part of Roosevelt's New Deal. It is a part of Roosevelt's New Deal. Yes, they would be the Las Vegas Seniors, Donald, but when they came in, they were Oakland. So, yeah, can you imagine the Las Vegas Seniors? C. 49ers, because of the gold rush. I mentioned the Eagles. It was because of the symbol of the National Recovery Act. Really interesting. The Seahawks were almost the Skippers, the Pioneers, the Seagulls, but they like the aggressiveness. And what kind of bird is on that helmet? Which is a badass helmet, I got to tell you. It's this. It's an osprey. Did not know that. It's actually an osprey. And you will be seeing the Ospreys in Heinz Field this year as the 17th game was added. And the Titans were almost, I tell you what, the Titans, I have no problem with the Titans name. I like it. I think Titans is Titans, you know, I love it. I think that's a great name. Their other names as possibilities were actually pretty good. You have the Tornadoes, the Tennessee Tornadoes, the Tennessee Copperheads, the South Stars. I don't love South Stars, but still not bad. And the Wranglers. Hey, they could have all worn Wranglers jeans. The first team to wear Wranglers jeans. So we had a lot of fun with this today. I hope you guys had fun. Bad, has there ever been two teams with the same name, says Cree. The same nickname at the same time. Now, I know in Canada, there were two Rough Riders. There were the Ottawa Rough Riders and the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if they still both exist. I'm not sure. I don't know a lot about CFL. Mr. Rod Young might be able to help us with that. If you know. Somebody mentioned they'd love to see a CFL game. Yeah, I would too. I would enjoy that. So, one more thing about names. I'm going to do an article about this, but we'll have some fun. Here's some famous names that the Pittsburgh Steelers actually drafted. And I'm not kidding. This is not a joke. Now, we all know about this. So these are famous namesakes that the Steelers have drafted in their time. All of these guys are draft picks for the Steelers. Of course, we know we have one right now. Marcus Allen. Not the Marcus Allen that won the Heisman Trophy, but we have a Marcus Allen. And that's one of the main football ones that we'll talk about. One of my favorites is a fictional character. Well, there's actually, the Steelers drafted two fictional characters. One, Eric Taylor. And if you know anything about the fantastic show Friday Night Lights that was on NBC from 2006 to 2000, maybe 14, Michael B. Jordan was on that show. That guy's awesome. But Coach Eric Taylor, the Steelers in 2000, I believe it was 2004, the Ben Roethlisberger drafted a lineman named Eric Taylor. But back in the 70s, the Steelers drafted Walter White. Can you imagine how cool that would be to have a Walter White? Another great fictional name. If you know Breaking Bad. Wow. Walter White, Heisenberg. That guy's a bad dude. They had Walter White. So, here's some others. Dave Shipley says it. The first ever draft pick of the Pittsburgh Steelers. William Shakespeare. He went by Bill Shakespeare, but I looked up his name. I just did this yesterday. He is actually a William Shakespeare. So they drafted William Shakespeare. Never played. You know, the Steelers also drafted a Woodrow Wilson. I'm not kidding. They drafted a guy named Woodrow Wilson. They also drafted Livin' La Vida Loca. Yes, they had a Ricky Martin in the 80s. So how about that? Ricky Martin. And one of my favorites, actually probably the best player on this list, a guy that they drafted in 1980, big in sitcoms. And I'm not talking about Ed O'Neill because they never drafted Ed O'Neill. He was a free agent from Youngstown State, almost made the team in 1969, went on for Married with Children and of course Modern Family. I'm not talking about Ed O'Neill because not really a namesake. But the Steelers had a defensive lineman who started a lot in the early 80s, I believe from 80 to 83, by the name of John Goodman. Not Roseanne's John Goodman, but the Steelers drafted a John Goodman too. There's some other cool names, but when you throw out the John Goodmans, the Woodrow Wilsons, the William Shakespeares, all drafted by the Steelers, I gotta love it. But yeah, Dave Shipley, if you didn't know that story, he's saying Al Bundy? Yeah. So if you don't know the story of Ed O'Neill, he was one of the last cuts in 1969 of Chuck Noll. Steelers had some good linebackers at that time. But he didn't quite make it. Now, one of the reasons was they changed his position and he was learning the position, but he stayed there till the very end, but didn't make the regular team. If he makes the team, you might not have Al Bundy. And gosh, I forgot his name. I can't remember his name on Modern Family all of a sudden. I know it. It should be on the tip of my tongue. But that's a really good show too. But yeah, Al Bundy was almost a Pittsburgh Steeler. So Polk High's favorite son, number 33, could have been a Pittsburgh Steeler. And he talks about it too. And that's he mentions the Steelers on Modern Family. I believe that's one of his favorite teams too. I believe he's a Steeler fan, if I'm not mistaken. But we've got a live chat here before I get ready to get on out of here. Snowman says, sorry, I won't be able to see a live show for about a month. My schedule is changing tomorrow. I'm starting at 5 a.m. Go Steelers. Good luck to you, Snowman. Love it. Thank you so much for the donation. As we talk about another favorite TV show of mine and Tony Defio's. Tony and I love the same type of shows. Magnum PI. Snowman is our Robin Masters. We love you, Snowman. Thanks. Good luck at your new time at work. Donald Nolan says this. Yeah, there's a video on YouTube with Ed O'Neill on Rich Eisen's show talking about being on Steelers. It's a really good watch. It is. And Cree asks, aren't Bradshaw and O'Neill good friends? I believe they are. Jay Pritchett. Thank you, Donald Nolan. Jay Pritchett. Look, was this a lot of Steeler news today? Wasn't a lot of stuff that happened this week. Yeah, they signed some undrafted free agents. I think that there's some guys that you could know. I mean, they officially signed Tyson Alualu, but that was last week. They just made it official this week. You know, there's stuff like that. But as Emmanuel Omar says, it's always a pleasure catching a live BTSC show on accident, especially today. Bad, you are my Easter basket, LOL. Emmanuel, thank you. I don't think I deserve that type of praise to be somebody's Easter basket, but I really appreciate it. And I got to tell you, if you're hanging out with me on Easter Sunday for 49 minutes, that's awesome. And I realize this isn't a lot of great Steeler news, but that's not what Tales from 2 a.m. is all about. You're going to get Steeler news all the time on BTSC, and that's what we're going to do. But we like to talk about this fun stuff. I consider myself sometimes the Cliff Clavin of BTSC it's a little known fact and just the dumb stuff. And I appreciate all of you for hanging out with me. Once again, happy birthday to Bry 160701. Have a great day. Happy Easter, everyone. Thank you for spending your morning with me. I love you so much. If you are on the podcast platform and not checking this out live, man, can't do it without you all either. So thank you for everything. So for Bryan Anthony Davis, this is Bryan Anthony Davis. I ask you to do 3 things. I ask you to be safe. be true to yourself, and always be behind the steel curtain.